Place your pattern piece on folded fabric matching the selved edges. Then align the pattern with the straight grain, or like I am doing for this bag, aligning with the cross grain as I want the print to run down my bag. Use weights, pins or both to secure your pattern. If using heavyweight fabric, I recommend using a pen or pencil to trace around the pattern, then cut it out without paper. But for the lighter fabrics, cutting it directly with the pattern is fine. Then cut out your pattern piece, ensuring you mark or snip notches where indicated. It's good practice to reinforce the edges of your bag with interfacing strips, especially if you're using tapestry or chenille fabrics like this one. I hand cut 1 cm strips from lightweight interfacing fabric. The next step is to cut out the lining. Place your pattern on 2 layers of lining fabric, aligning the pattern with the straight grain or the cross grain, and cut it out. When choosing a lining, if your outer fabric is thick, choose a lightweight lining so as not to make the seams too bulky or thick. Give your lining a quick press to smooth out any wrinkles. Next, we're going to make the pattern piece for the interchangeable slide buckle. As the pattern measurements will depend on what size buckle you use, you will need to hand draw this pattern piece. The bag you see here is finished, and I use this buckle and other similar sized ones with all my bags. So take your buckle and measure along the inner rod. My buckle rod measures 4.5 centimeters, which will be the pattern width plus seam allowance of 1 centimeter. And the flap length for this tutorial is 20 centimeters long, but you can make it longer if you want to. So next you want to take a piece of paper and measure 20 centimeters long across and make a mark. For the width, take your buckle rod measurement and add 2 centimeters. That's your width. So mine is 6.5 centimeters. Once drawn, take one end and mark in at 1 centimeter for each side. Then mark 5 centimeters on each length side. Draw a straight line between the dots and then cut out your pattern. Place the pattern on a double layer of your bag fabric and pin in place, and then trace around the pattern or cut it out directly. Place some pins or some clips to hold the 2 pieces together, and we are ready to sew. Sew around the edges with a 1 centimeter seam, leaving the square ends open. When finished, remove the pins and clip the corners and trim back the side seams to about 5 millimeters. Gently turn the flap closure inside out and use a tool to push through the ends if needed. Then using your fingers, roll out the edges of the seams and finger press so they are flush. Then top stitch 5 millimeters from the edge all the way around the sides. Next we're going to attach the flap closure. Find the center of your flap closure on the square raw end. Match the center to the center notch of your pattern piece on the right side of the fabric and pin in place. Then place the lining fabric on top with the right side down and pin in place. Sew around the inside of the bag opening at 1 centimetre from the edge and reinforce the flap closure with extra stitching. After stitching, trim the inner edges of both bag pieces to around 5 millimetres. The next step is to press down your lining edges in an upwards motion. Do this with both bag pieces. After pressing, fold in the lining and place the second bag piece on top, right sides together, and fold in the lining once again. Align the bag pieces together, matching notches, and pin in place. Make sure the lining is out of the way. Sew around the edges at 1 centimetre from the edge. After sewing, triangle clip the corners. This means to cut small triangles near the stitching line, being careful not to cut into the stitching itself. Next, you want to stitch the lining together. First, pull out the lining, match the notches at the centre base first, and secure all the way around with pins matching the other notches. When you near the end, measure 9 centimetres from the end and place a pin. This pin is where you will start sewing, leaving a gap at the top, and you do this for both ends. Sew around the edges of the lining from the first pin to the last pin at 1 centimetre from the edge. After sewing, remove the pins. Then take one end to carefully turn the bag right side out. Gently pull the bag through, adjusting the sides as needed and being careful not to pull too hard. Looks like I'm wrestling a squirrel. Once the bag is completely pulled through, roll out the seams a bit with your fingers. Then tuck the lining into the bag and again press out both the bag corners with your fingers. Next, join the right side of the two ends together and match the seams and pin in place. Stitch the seams together at 1 centimetre from the edge. After stitching, finger press the seam flat and press with an iron. Top stitch 5 millimeters along the top and bottom of the seam on the right side of the fabric. Next, we need to close the lining opening. I'm going to machine stitch, but you can hand stitch if you prefer. Align the seams together and pin in place. Then sew close to the edge as you comfortably can. The next step is to top stitch around the bag opening on both sides, but first you need to press the seams to prepare for sewing. Next we're going to top stitch starting at the strap join with the lining facing up. Slightly roll in the seams so the outer fabric is showing slightly. Then top stitch 5 mm from the edge, ensuring the outer fabric is slightly rolled in as you sew. When you get to the slip buckle flap, move it out from underneath. Continue sewing all around to the end, then top stitch the other side. This next step is optional. To avoid the lining sticking out on the handles, you can top stitch it down. Flatten out one side of the strap and align the lining seams to the outer fabric seams. Use a pin to find the center seam and then pin in place. Continue this for about 20 centimeters along the strap. Then repeat this process for the other side. Sew in the seam line on both sides. After sewing, push out the corners again with your fingers. Lay the bag flat and give the bag a final press with the iron on both sides. The last step is to add the interchangeable slide buckle hardware. If you want it to be permanent, you can sew it on, but using interchangeable slide buckles are a great way to change the look of your bags.